Welcome to the podcast of FENS Virtual Forum 2020. We'll be looking at the highlights of Day 5, Wednesday the 15th of July, and catching up with the people behind the events. In this edition we'll meet both the outgoing and incoming President of FENS, and we'll talk to the recipient of the EJN Senior Investigator Award. But first we go to sleep, or rather to a lecture on sleep. Professor Jan Born gave the Tianqiu and Chrissy Chen Institute lecture about sleep consolidation and memory. Our interviewer couldn't help but ask whether Professor Born's own sleep had been affected by the pandemic crisis.
My own sleep is bad, but it's kind of a matter of age, yeah. So after 40, you shouldn't think of sleeping deeply and being well rested in the morning. I'm well rested in the morning anyway, but no, I don't think my sleep has in any way changed just due to the lockdown. No.
Professor Born's lecture deals with the formation of memory in sleep, and he discusses the active system consultation concept of memory formation.
Memory functions must be subdivided into three fundamentally different sub-processes. There is first the encoding, which refers to the uptake of the information to be stored into a neural network, into the preliminary neural trace. And then secondly, there's a retention or consolidation, which refers to some kind of strengthening of the newly encoded memory representation, which is thought to be initially rather fragile and prone to decay, unless it is consolidated. And this consolidation also refers to, and this is not unimportant here in this context, also refers to some kind of integrating the newly encoded information into the pre-existing long-term memories, into the pre-existing knowledge without erasing, without overriding, without damaging this knowledge. And then thirdly, there's a recall or retrieval of the stored information. Now, encoding and recall, these are processes that take place mainly and most effectively during wakefulness, in the wake mode of brain activity. By contrast, the consolidation of memory, according to our hypothesis, is the process that takes place mainly and most effectively during sleep, in the sleep mode of brain processing.
As we age, do we see a deterioration of memory consolidation? And does that explain some of the problems with memory in older people?
Yes, yeah. This is becoming more and more clear. Yeah, the older you become, and the memory problems that appear with aging, they at least correlate at a one-to-one level with disturbed sleep. But what is now going on, that you see actually we develop an understanding of the processing that mediate this association. Yeah, it's not just disturbed sleep. We know that the slow wave sleep, the stage of slow wave sleep, decreases dramatically, with age. And this decrease in slow wave sleep in this particular stage is the reason for a decline in memory function in elderly. And you can even go deeper. We see that the phase locking of certain waves in slow wave sleep, the phase locking of spindle activity to the slow waves, is in a way disturbed in aging, and this correlates with the malfunctioning or decrease in sleep-dependent memory benefits that we see in the elderly. Yeah.
20 years ago, Professor Seth Grant presented groundbreaking work on synaptic proteins at the fledgling FENS Forum in Brighton. At this forum, he received the EJN Senior Investigator Award for his work on synaptic proteins. That must feel exhilarating.
In a way it does, but I think what you've got to do is you've got to, when you're doing science, it helps to try to build upon exciting findings and take them to the next level in a series of steps and stages. And at that FENS meeting 20 years ago, I presented something that was really very special and very different. It suddenly changed the way we thought about synapses. There were so many different proteins were found associated with the NMDA receptor, tenfold more than we thought were there, and it suddenly made everything look a lot more complicated than everybody had previously thought.
Professor Grant's work has shown that the brain is significantly more complex than previously thought. How does he think this might impact basic neuroscientific research?
Well, the idea that the brain is the most complex structure in this comes from anatomy of multiple different types. It's not just the anatomy of the cells and the synapses. We've known that for more than 100 years, and just based on that alone, the brain as an organ is extremely impressive. But now when you factor in that within any synapse there's actually hundreds of thousands of proteins and encoded by more than 1,000 different genes, and we now realize that there's actually enormous synapse diversity, it's unknown how much there is, then the complexity of it becomes even more astonishing. But what is always the case when there is complexity in biology is that there are defining principles and rules, and they're the things to try to uncover, and that's exactly the kind of thing which is really fundamental research. That's really the important thing, and so that's what we've been looking for over the last couple of decades, are sort of really key principles that come out of that. We're less interested in this particular famous molecule or that particular famous molecule. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But what we really want to do is find those principles that are going to help us understand how this complexity of the brain came about, and what does it do, and what does it endow the brain with. And obviously the answer to that is this remarkable behavioral repertoire that we and every other animal has.
And what are the implications of this research for the diagnosis and treatment of neuropsychological disorders?
I think there's going to be a very direct and very tangible link between understanding the synaptome architecture, that is the 3D dimensional spatial distribution of synapses, as well as their temporal distribution across the lifespan, something we call a lifespan synaptome architecture. The connections between those molecular architectures of the brain and clinical research or clinical translation will come about very clearly through brain imaging technologies. And we've shown in a paper we published in Neuron in 2018 and another paper in the same year in Nature Neuroscience that the molecular composition of synapses in different parts of the brain are contributing to the signals that are measured using various types of fMRI. And there are now molecular markers for doing PET imaging of synapses, which is going to directly map onto the synaptome as well. So, this basic understanding of the synaptome architecture will therefore directly impact, diagnostic and monitoring and prognostic work in medicine. I think it's right around the corner. And there's all sorts of work going on at the present time that's going to cement that in place, I'd say, within the next 5 years.
Finally, as a FENS veteran, we asked Professor Grant how he was adapting to the FENS virtual event.
I think the virtual way is the way of the future, because although one can reach a pretty big audience at a meeting like FENS, the fact that these lectures are going to be recorded and available for posterity means that people in all parts of the world can look at them. And I think that's going to be extremely important and valuable. Many, many times I have wanted to listen to a lecture from some famous scientist from some bygone era, and they simply don't exist. It would be absolutely fantastic to listen to, the wonderful lectures of scientists from 30, 40, 50, and 70 years ago. And I hope that we get much more of this kind of virtual conferencing.
The forum is traditionally the time when the outgoing FENS president hands over to the new. We talked to them both and began by asking Professor Carmen Sandi to look back over the past 2 years of her presidency.
I think it's been an amazing experience being a FENS president for many different reasons, because I think it's a growing and booming community. The first was the preparation of the forum, that it's of course one of the prime activities for FENS, and of course it takes a long time, and we started already longer than 2 years ago preparing the physical forum, and everything looked wonderful towards the Glasgow meeting. We went there, and it was fantastic venue, etc. And then we put together the program committee. Everything was working fantastically, and that's something that I was also looking forward very much, because one of my priorities for FENS and also for the forum has been to bring inclusivity and to have not only broadly diversity of scientists, but also of topics that cover the broad neuroscience range of neuroscience topics, etc. And that's something that we put together this time. We invited the societies to come with bottom-up sessions and mini conferences that we call, etc. So we put together, I think, a wonderful, vibrant meeting. Of course, we were very much looking forward to go to Glasgow and meet physically with everyone. It's something I think a highlight for many of the neuroscientists in Europe and beyond. But all of a sudden it became clearer and clearer that it was not going to be possible. So at the point, of course, it was unclear, but we had to take this decision. And then, I think when we thought there is no way that we can meet physically, we also thought that having a virtual forum comes with many opportunities. First of all, because it enables now to meet when it's not possible otherwise. And second, because we have to start also testing this type of formats, because I think it's a little bit the future. It's not that we are going to eliminate completely the physical meetings, but it brings a lot of added opportunities from many different perspectives.
We asked Professor Jean-Antoine Girault how it feels to be taking up the presidency for the next 2 years.
Well, it's very daunting, actually. I'm a bit anxious, and also I'm very much looking forward to it, because I think it's a challenge, and we are in a very peculiar time somehow. I think there are lots of many things which have been done already and which are in progress, which are absolutely terrific. And so the first thing will be to keep on with these things and making them even growing more and better, improving them.
I think somehow I think we both are very enthusiastic about FENS. We both come from being presidents of societies that were member societies, and so we feel we want to represent indeed the community. But somehow there are some maybe not, I wouldn't call it challenges, because things are going well, but some points in which it's important to put the effort at FENS. And one of them is, I think, the representation of the diversity. So something that we have launched, it's the ALBA network that fosters diversity, equality, and also inclusion in brain sciences. And this is a kind of a new movement, if you want, that it's very important to bring at the appropriate levels. And I think this is something that I can feel that Jean-Antoine has also a very strong sensitivity towards.
The ALBA network, I think, is a really important creation, new action, which is involving beyond FENS also IBRO and SFN. So that's a really very broad action and with a very important aim fighting against discrimination, which still exists, of course, in neuroscience field as well.
This is something I launched. I think it will continue also very strong within FENS. We are going to keep talking with Jean-Antoine, but this is one of the very important developments and focuses. Another one is, for example, the journal, European Journal of Neuroscience, EJN, that I think it's gone through amazing developments in the last few years. There were developments that were taken by the editors-in-chief towards modernizing the peer review system and the way they were dealing with the authors, etc. And in the last year, we have also, if you want to reshape it, we have a new senior editors that joined the editor-in-chief, John Fox, and the journal is, I think, blooming at the moment. It's with a lot of great ideas.
This journal was also a very important one. So the secret is how did she manage to do that and in a successful way, and hopefully get a little bit of that recipe to keep on doing the same in the future. So
Jean-Antoine has the sensitivity also to maybe integrate better the member societies. I think this is very important.
FENS is the emanation of its member societies. So FENS has to represent them, work for them, put the link between them. And this is certainly one aspect that we have to improve.
It's amazing, I think, what FENS is doing with the small staff office that it has, and still it's been expanding quite a lot. For example, one of the very interesting actions that FENS is taking, and that it's kind of having a life or a development on its own, is the FENS regional meeting that normally was meant to be taking place in the odd years when the forum doesn't take place. It started maybe being like a regional meeting that in which FENS supported the societies, national societies that were developing, but slowly it's been increasing in number, importance, etc. And we had one wonderful meeting last year in Serbia, in Belgrade, with representation also of the Romanian and the Turkish societies, and it was clear that this has become one of the very important also events that FENS is organizing in support with the national societies or the monothematic societies. So I think, yeah, if we look at all the activities that FENS is normally taking care, there are many, many important now developments that are taking like a new stage or new phase.
We are living in a world which is changing all the time, and there has been a major change due to the epidemics recently. So seeing FENS overcoming that, hopefully having the next meeting, the next FENS forum, we don't know. Of course, nobody can predict the future, but hopefully a physical one in Paris. Perhaps also taking advantage of the experience of the virtual forum. There might be a way of including some virtual aspects also in that new forum. I don't know, and perhaps the criterion for being happy of what will have been done in 2 years from now would be if the young neuroscientists in Europe think that FENS is really something useful for them and significant for in the neuroscience landscape. And I think increasing the value and the importance of FENS for young neuroscientists, I think it's a really important criterion. So maybe it's not so easy to know, but at least that would be my main satisfaction if I have the feeling that we are going in the right direction.
That's it from us. Thank you for letting us highlight your daily events at the FENS Virtual Forum 2020. This podcast was made with the support of the Dana Foundation.